Sorry about the odd angle, weird lighting, all that kind of stuff. Real quick, I want to introduce you to Reggie. You've heard her yelling in the background from time to time, but she's doing better these days. And she evidently does not want to be a YouTube star. We'll work on that too. I had a video shot when we, our WVU, signed Jeffrey Weimer. Didn't get it edited just as well. They have since gotten commitments from 4 more guys for 2025. And, well, that in and of itself is worth reporting. But even when they signed Weimer, it got me thinking about the wide receiver numbers, which got me thinking about the total numbers. And, of course, thinking is a pretty dangerous thing to do at times. We'll get into what I'm thinking after I say this is WVU Football Going Deep, the channel for fans who like to think as well as cheer, and the channel where trash talking and insults don't fly unless the insult is especially well written and justified. Well, we'll see how that goes. I am Forrest Poston, and well, I have been known to let fly an insult in my time. Not all of them well written. Meanwhile, please share, subscribe, click the thumbs up button, click the notification bell, and make comments, tell your friends. And do not overlook the thanks button under the video. Whether you click it or not is entirely up to you, but please don't overlook it. Now, what is going on here? We signed Weimer, receiver out of Idaho State, had over 1,000 yards at Idaho State last year. Back in JUCO, he had over 2,000 yards in 2 years. And that's what most of the people have been focusing on. Well, he was also at UNLV for 2 years, and he did squat there. So, is he this massively great commitment? Yeah, maybe. Not absolutely. He had big years against lesser competition. Does that mean he's not good enough for better competition? Or has he learned? Were things just not suitable for him at UNLV? Don't know any of that. But he's not a pickup that I'm getting excited about. Interested in, yes. Excited? No. But we we have a fair number of wide receivers who are kind of all, to me, in a so-so range. Now, I'll get back to that. Meanwhile, we've also signed Max Anderson, quarterback, Shamaris Bomar, and Armani Weaver, a cornerback and athlete who will probably be corner safety, could be a receiver. Both were committed to Appalachian State until coaching changed there. Rod West was their recruiter, and now he's brought them to West Virginia. Again, and these are going to be freshmen in 2025, so we're getting a really large freshman class, and fairly well-rated recruits who were committed to a decent school. But we're not flipping, a P4 recruit. These guys may be good. They're probably pretty good. But again, I'm not just going to start, dancing in the streets. And I'm going to get to some of what I see here, or what I think I see. Also signed Carter Zuliani, best known as a tight end, I believe, but according to Chris Anderson at 24/7 Sports, is likely to play defensive line for West Virginia. Now, when I started adding up numbers, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, I'm just looking at what I think the current approach is. It may turn out very, very well. I mean, it could be a perfect plan. It may not. I see some risks that most of the people aren't talking about. And of course, risk means it may turn out well, it may turn out badly, it may turn out in between, and usually it's in between. But first of all, keep in mind, right now we're still under the old roster rules. 85 scholarships in terms of traditional scholarships through the school, and a total of 120 players on the roster. Later this year, I think, June, July, something like this, I'm not certain, we switched to the new rules, which is just 105 player limit, period. What you do with scholarships is up to you. It can be 105 if you want. It can be none if you want, which means you won't get very many players. But, and it can be, regular scholarships through the school. It can be what they're now calling NIL scholarships. However you want to come up with the money, it's up to you, but a strict 105 player limit. So 15 fewer players. Normally, those 15 players, you're looking at walk-on types anyway. But some walk-ons become critical, in 1, 2, 3 years. Right now, if you add all of the players who are currently listed on the official roster for 2025, plus the, I think now 3 who are committed but who won't enroll until spring or summer, plus the freshmen who are committed but won't make it until summer or fall. That adds up to over 120. We have 23, I think, walk-ons currently on the roster. With the number of players committed or enrolled, everybody accounted for so far, we have to get rid of pretty much every walk-on. Now, might keep, like the long snappers, the punters and kickers who aren't on scholarship. I think Ethan Head might be scholarship, and Oliver Straw should be scholarship. But you're wiping out, just to get to the 105 number, almost every current walk-on. Most of them were going to be leaving. A lot of others have already left. Some will go to another school. Some will give up football because of this dang blasted, change. But I think there's some walk-ons there that you might want to keep. Clay Ash. I think, again, Raymond Kovaleski, I loved his high school tape. But if we keep a walk-on, somebody else has to go. And if we sign more, and there's talk that there will be more in the 2025 class, every time you hear about somebody committing to West Virginia, it means somebody else on the roster has to go before all of these guys come in. And that's kind of starting to worry me. Now, there was always going to be a big turnover. I mean, had to be, because we had a very large graduating class this year. And as usual with the coaching change, more transfers than usual. And of course, we were always going to have some guys enter the portal, but how many and what quality was pretty daunting this year. And I know you go back 3 years and it was a problem, but the last couple of years, we've done well in that regard. So Rodriguez had to bring in a lot of players just to get up to a full roster. But suddenly we've gone up to where we're packing more in maybe than there's room for. And the thing is, a lot of them are just bodies. I mean, these are good players. But a lot of the receivers, corners, safeties that they are signing are probably not starting material. Right off the bat, not starting material. Already kind of competing for number 2 on the depth chart. And with the safeties, we've got enough to go 5 deep. Now, some of them are young enough, they're not going to be contributing. Corners, we're getting kind of heavy there as well. And I know you want enough corners, but it's starting to look to me like the plan is to bring in a lot of people for tryouts, not bringing in guys to be on the roster, but we're bringing in guys who are just getting a shot at being on the roster. I think the plan and expectation is for a lot of guys to move on after spring, whether it is, guys who were on the team in 2024 or guys they've just signed. I do believe that some of the guys in this transfer class will transfer out after spring, because most of them have 1 year left, or a few, depending on the ruling on the JUCO case, might have 2. But they don't want to spend that time number 3 or 4 on the depth chart. And I think some of the guys they've signed in the transfer class are going to end up buried on the depth chart. Now, Rodriguez has not had time, or is just, he hasn't had time to really fully evaluate the players who were here. He got a brief look at them in football terms, prepping for the bowl game and in the bowl game. But he is really only starting to get to know who they are. So he doesn't know which of these guys is going to fit the system. With the transfers, they're trying, I'm sure, to bring in guys who will, fit his style. Some of them aren't going to fit as well as expected. Some of them are going to fit, but are not going to be good enough. Just because they may be good, but how many guys are going to be better at that position? And the way we're bringing them in, I think, I think it's for competition, and then some will pick and some will essentially get cut. I don't know how it's going to get played out. If you're bringing in enough who hit this way, things can go very well. And you bring in more players, you have a better chance of, getting some right. I guess my biggest concern is going to be a morale issue. Now, on the one hand, if these guys figure out the situation that they really are fighting for a spot on the roster, maybe they play harder. But if they do start seeing each other not as teammates, but as opponents, that can mess things up. Yes, they may try harder, but literally things can go sour. And that can ruin a season as soon as something goes wrong on the field or on the practice field. So that's my guess at what's going on. Tryouts. It might work. It can be made to work. And it depends sometimes on how you pick the guys and how you play it out and how honest you are with the guys. So this may turn out very well. This could even be the key to more wins this season. But it's also the kind of thing I think that can blow up in your face if something goes wrong. We'll see. Now, of course, I mean, the freshmen they're bringing in, they're not on the block. They have to get time to develop. Although, of course, some will leave just because they won't, they won't like it here. Happens every year, every school. But also keep in mind, now, like I say, every time we announce somebody else committing, it means somebody has to leave before a certain date. Mostly, of course, that's going to be right after spring. And I don't know who it's going to be, but I think it's going, some people were saying maybe 10 people after spring. I think it's going to be a lot more. I think by that time it may have to be a lot more just to bring in the guys who won't be here until after spring. This could get rough, it could get ugly, or it could be the start of a very big season. And I've said this a lot lately, a whole lot, but we're going to have to wait and see. Should make for an exciting spring. So if that's what you want, I think you're going to get it. Anyway, that's my take on things. So I am going to get on with my evening, spend a little more time with Reggie, and I'll talk to you later. So long.